Good morning, everyone. I'm Noelle Spire. I am the marketing manager with iVet360, and I'm glad to have you here today. We're going to be talking about something that's at the heart of every thriving veterinary practice, but also one of the hardest things to measure and maintain, which is client loyalty. Now, when I say loyalty, I don't just mean getting someone to come back for their next vaccine. I mean the kind of relationship that lasts years and leads to better patient outcomes, higher revenue stability, and genuine community trust. This presentation is called Turning First Clients into Lifelong Clients, because retention doesn't start after the first visit. It starts right with that first visit, sometimes even before. Today, we'll talk about how to strengthen that connection at every stage, from that first phone call to long-term follow-ups and everything in between. Okay, so first things first, a little bit about me. I have worked in veterinary marketing for about 10 years now. I've been with iVet360 for the last several years. And prior to that, I was in animal shelter management with Paws Chicago, the Midwest's largest no-kill shelter, where I worked on intake, adoption, and community programming in the Chicagoland area, specifically at our rescue and recovery center. So I was working with our shelter medicine team specifically. So I've seen pet care from both the nonprofit and private practice side of things. I'm also a pet owner myself. I have 4 dogs, and any time of year you might find me with an additional small animal living in my house. I am passionate about helping practices strengthen their client connections while keeping pets healthy, happy, and in their families and out of the shelters. A little bit about iVet360. iVet360 has been serving the veterinary industry for over 11 years now. Our mission here is to help more pets by helping the people who help them. And we do that by supporting practice growth that you can document and prove. This means that we care less about vanity metrics and more about conversions, revenue lift, and retention. We work across hundreds of hospitals, from single doctor practices to family-owned practices with multiple locations, from New Jersey to California, rural to big city, everything in between. So everything I'm sharing today comes from patterns that we're seeing across the whole industry, not just one practice. The model we use is high touch and data-driven. We align your goals, your tools, and your team so that what you measure actually matches what matters. Today's topics, we're going to be talking about loyalty culture. Our clients in this industry aren't just consumers. They're pet parents looking for trust. Client retention and loyalty fuel long-term return on investment far more effectively than short-term tactics. So here's what we'll cover today. Why loyalty matters, core strategies to build trust, tools that make it stick, some real-world examples from our clients, and then finally, time for some Q&A and discussion at the end. All right, so let's get started. The cost of one-and-done clients. When we talk about client loyalty, we're really talking about creating a culture of trust. Our clients aren't just consumers, they're pet parents, and they are looking for confidence, reassurance, and consistency. It's tempting to chase new client growth, of course, but if your current clients are slipping through the cracks, you're working overtime to fill a leaky bucket. Retention is where sustainable growth really happens. So let's talk about it. Did you know that according to VetSource's Practice Overview Report from 2022, 36% of new clients do not return within 18 months? That is a huge missed opportunity. We spend all this time and money attracting new clients through Google Ads, print advertising, community events, but the smartest investment is the one we make in keeping those clients coming back, because it costs far more to attract a new client than it does to retain an existing one. Now, that's not to say that new client acquisition isn't important, but consider how much you spend on attracting those new clients through your branding, Google Ads, print marketing, websites, community outreach and events, and only for so many of them never to return. We need to prioritize making that initial investment worthwhile by focusing on loyalty just as much as we focus on acquisition, if not more so. So let's talk about the silent profit leak. one and done clients. The pet owners who come once and never return. How many pets are slipping through the cracks, and how much is it costing you? Realistically, it's expensive to win a new client and wasteful to lose them after a single visit. So let's think about what that means for your practice. All those new clients that you've worked hard to earn, more than a third of them are not coming back. That's not just a missed opportunity. That is an ongoing cost. Since it costs about 7 to 10 times more to acquire a new client than to retain an existing one, it's important to remember that every time we let a client slip away, we're multiplying the cost of growth. Retention, on the other hand, compounds. A returning client is booking wellness exams. They're buying preventatives. They're following your recommendations. They may even refer friends and family to your practice. They're much easier to communicate with because they already trust you. And that trust turns into predictable revenue. If you remember one thing from this webinar, I hope it's this. Retention is your highest yield growth strategy. I'll repeat that. Retention is your highest yield growth strategy. So let's take a look at lifelong client value. And let's think about it this way. A single puppy visit might be about $200 or so, maybe even more. But that same client, if they stay with you throughout their pet's life, could represent over $7,000 in revenue. You might offer a discount at that first visit, but if that offer helps you earn a loyal, lifelong client, that return is incredible. Now let's take that one step further because the numbers, really tell a story here. The average first visit for a new client is about $200. That's usually a comprehensive exam, vaccines, maybe preventatives. But after that first visit, if they return for their recommended wellness care, that same client generates about $709 in total revenue just in that first year alone. So when a hospital hesitates to offer a new client incentive, I get it. It feels like a discount. But what if we shifted our perspective here? What if you spend a few dollars to make 700? Because that's the exchange that's really happening. Those free first exams are not wasteful, they're leverage. Another important note here is that that $700 figure isn't a one-time number. When a client stays active year after year after year, their lifetime value can easily surpass thousands, especially when you factor in things like diagnostics, dental care, preventative refills. And then on the operational side, retained clients take less time to educate, right? They're more likely to book online. They convert higher when reminded about care recommendations because they already trust you. So instead of thinking about offers or incentives as giving something away, think of them as removing friction from that first yes. You're not discounting your care, you're investing in a relationship that pays dividends year after year after year. When you start measuring that trust in repeat appointments, average spend, referral rates, you'll find that your most effective marketing strategy isn't an ad at all. It's the relationship, right? So let's talk about that, the trust factor. Honestly, no matter how many Google ads you have going, how perfect your Google ads are set up, if your clients aren't feeling seen, heard, guided, they're going to drift away. And that's where great marketing really hands the baton to great medicine, and where every interaction, from that reminder email to the recheck call, reinforces that sense of trust and care. So let's take that a step further. Trust is the foundation of loyalty. In fact, a 2025 Boehringer Ingelheim study showed that 94% of pet owners trust their veterinary professionals. That trust is built not only in the exam room, but in every client touch point, from your front desk team to your follow-up calls, everything in between. The three core elements of loyalty reinforcement here are transparency, empathy, and consistency. Clients want honesty about pricing and care options. They want compassion when things get stressful, and they want a consistent, dependable experience every time they interact with you. Clients aren't just buying a service, they're buying confidence. Confidence that your team knows what they're doing, that their pet matters, that their money is being well spent. In veterinary medicine, pet owners are handing over their family members to you. That emotional weight is enormous. And that trust is often built in high emotion moments, right? Surgery, euthanasia, emergencies. Trust is your most valuable currency, and that's not just built in the exam room. Every touch point either reinforces or erodes that confidence. David Feinberg, the former CEO of Geisinger Health, said, "In healthcare, the experience of the patient is the new marketing." What he's really saying here is that loyalty isn't built at checkout. It's reinforced every time a client feels cared for. And when you do that consistently, compliance stops being a struggle. It becomes instinct. So let's talk about some strategies. Our core strategy number one, loyalty, wellness, and referral programs. Because trust isn't just an emotion, it's a metric. It shows up in repeat visits, client retention, and lifetime value. And the practices that are intentionally nurturing that trust don't just hope that clients come back. They build systems to make sure that they do. And that's where loyalty programs, wellness plans, referral incentives all come in. So we're going to take a look at how these programs turn relationships into revenue and why they're some of the most cost-effective strategies a veterinary practice can run. So let's talk tactics. The practices that support retention best are the ones that intentionally build systems, as I said, that make it easy and rewarding for clients to return consistently. So I'll break this down into three core pieces. We've got loyalty programs, wellness plans, and referral incentives. Loyalty programs are your antidote to attrition. In today's world, where clients have dozens of options, and they know it, a well-structured loyalty system gives them a reason to return to you. So what are we doing to reward that consistency? Things like staying up to date on vaccines or scheduling annual wellness visits, which means better compliance and stronger client relationships. Check with your reminder platforms. Oftentimes, these platforms will have different kind of loyalty programs built in. You may just have to do a little digging to find out. Next, we have wellness plans. They create an ongoing relationship instead of a one-time visit. When your clients enroll in a wellness plan, they're committing, not just financially, but emotionally, to keeping their pets healthy year-round. That predictable care for them is predictable revenue for you. Now let's talk about referral programs, one of the most underutilized tools in veterinary marketing. When someone tells their friend, "This is where I take my dog, they're incredible," that is an instant trust transfer built on the credibility that you've already earned. To illustrate the power of a referral program, I have a case study here from a hospital of ours to share with you. This hospital offered a give 100, get 100 referral credit, which for them amounted to the cost of a wellness exam. There was no referral limit, meaning clients could refer as many friends and family members as they wanted and redeem the benefits. Over 3 years, that program brought in nearly 300 new clients alone. That's almost 100 clients a year just in your referral program efforts. In this particular hospital, the ATC from new clients referred by their existing clients was about $362, and that's with a free first exam. So whether it's a point system, a wellness plan, or a referral reward, the goal is ultimately the same: to turn those one-time visitors into lifelong clients. Because when you make it rewarding to stay, clients stop shopping around. Core strategy number 2, proactive communication. So we've covered how structured programs like loyalty, wellness, and referrals can keep your clients connected to you. But retention doesn't stop when they walk out the door, right? The real secret here is keeping your clients engaged, not just in the exam room, but what happens between visits. When it comes to proactive communication, regular touch points matter. Whether that's a quarterly newsletter, a text reminder, or a personalized post-operative message, every outreach builds familiarity and trust. but clients don't need constant noise, right? They need clear educational touch points that build trust and drive action. That's where tools like quarterly newsletters come in. Think about topics that matter seasonally, like dental health month promotions, vaccine compliance reminders, parasite prevention education. Each one gives you a reason to connect with your clients while reinforcing preventative care. When you measure engagement and ROI from these campaigns, you start to see what can really move the needle. One of our hospitals sent a single dental compliance email to clients whose pets had never had a dental cleaning. From that one campaign, they generated more than $36,000 in revenue from cleanings, extractions, and other related services. That's the power of consistent, purposeful communication. It keeps clients informed, engaged, and walking back through your door. Core strategy number 3, forward booking. Forward booking is the simplest, most reliable retention strategy. Let's talk about why it works and how practices that treat it as the standard of care are seeing real results. So forward booking locks in your next touch point before life gets busy, before reminders get ignored, and before that 6-month gap turns into 18 months. When you schedule your next appointment before a client leaves, you normalize preventative care as a non-negotiable. It helps your schedule, improves compliance, and reduces lapses. Here's why forward booking works so well. It removes friction. It creates predictability for your clients and for your team. And it signals to the client that ongoing care isn't optional. So think about it this way. When you leave your dentist, for example, or your hairstylist, they don't ask you if you want to schedule. They make it happen, right? And veterinary care deserves the same standard. The key to all of this is that forward booking only works when it's everyone's job. Your doctor should be mentioning it in the exam room with phrases like, let's plan to see Daisy again in 6 months to check those teeth. Your techs should then be bringing it up when they're walking the client back to the front desk by saying something like, Jane will get you checked out and make sure we get Daisy back on schedule for next year's wellness visit. And your CSRs should be the ones closing the loop by saying something like, let's go ahead and get that on the calendar. If things change when the time comes, we can always reschedule. It is far easier to reschedule an appointment a year from now than it is to try to lure that client back from the depths of wherever to make an appointment, right? A lot of us don't know what we're doing a year from now, but when that dental CSR says, can I put you down in 6 months or the year, whatever it might be, we usually just sort of agree to it. And then when the time comes, we may reschedule, but it's much easier to lock somebody in to rescheduling a day or two after before than it is to try to get them out of the woodwork and bring them in for an appointment. So forward booking should be a constant conversation for all rungs of your practice. A partner practice of ours that embraces forward booking as a team-wide effort routinely maintains a near perfect forward booking rate of almost 100% and reports that 80 to 90% of clients follow through with these appointments. Core strategy number 4, reminders and follow-ups. So we talked a few slides back about discussing proactive communications, right? I want to do a little bit deeper of a dive into reminders and follow-ups because they really are the backbone of retention here. It's what keeps pets on track for vaccines, wellness exams, and diagnostics, but they also quietly reinforce trust. The key here is to use a multi-channel approach, right? Some clients live by text. Others only respond to email notifications. And yes, there are still a few who check their mailbox for postcards. When you meet clients where they are using multiple different touch points, you reduce the risk of pets slipping through the cracks. And don't underestimate the power of that personal follow-up either. A quick call after surgery to check on how a pet's doing, or even a message after that first visit. It's such a small gesture, but it really communicates genuine care and often turns first-time clients into lifelong ones. Another great option here is to take this concept a step further and leverage targeted email communications when it comes to compliance. So one of our hospitals implemented a simple vaccine and wellness reminder flow paired with a lapsed client campaign that acted as sort of a safety net. And this was sent to pet owners who had let their pet's rabies vaccine lapse. It took minimal effort to set up, but it generated measurable results with more than 50 pets returning for vaccination. And that's the magic of consistency. It's not flashy, it's not complicated, but it works every single time. Core strategy number 5, personalization. Our 5th and final strategy is all about personalization. Clients want to feel seen, heard, remembered. When they feel seen and valued, they become emotionally invested in your hospital. An emotional investment is what drives loyalty. Simple touches go a long way. Things like birthday emails for pets, tailored preventative reminders, even referencing the last visit in a lapsed wellness message. This day and age especially, people want to be seen, heard, valued, and as corny as it sounds, we all want to be names and not numbers, right? From CSRs to text to DVMs, anyone who is client-facing should make a client and their pet feel that their presence is welcome, that they aren't being rushed, that their pet is 100% the focus during the appointment. And while this may seem intuitive, the wear and tear of this field can take a toll. And when it comes to text and email communications, most of the time, you already have a wealth of information about your clients at your fingertips within your PIMS system. So it's not about adding more work, it's about using what you already know to make every message feel like it came from your veterinary team and their veterinary team, not just a system, right? When clients feel recognized, they return and they refer. So what happens when you implement these tools? In our experience, hospitals that consistently implement these tools stand out above the rest. Here are some of the statistics from the top 15% of IVET 360 hospitals using our marketing services. The revenue is up 20.9% over last year. Transactions are up 13.7% over 2024, and new clients are up 30.2% over last year. We all know this has been a tough year. The last year or two have been, an uphill climb at times. So while the averages do tell a story, the fact of the matter is that these hospitals consistently outperform others. These are the practices that are embracing marketing best practices and prioritizing retention just as much as they prioritize that new client acquisition. They're offering incentives, they're forward booking, they're personalizing the client experience and sending reminders and follow-ups. They're sending targeted communications, and they are wildly outpacing the rest of the industry. So what can you do to join them? Let's wrap this up and recap the main takeaways that we've learned today. My advice is to start small. Pick 1 or 2 of these strategies to focus on first. Maybe forward booking and a simple referral program. Maybe that will work best for your practice. Make sure your team has the resources that they need and are equipped with either scripts or talking points for this implementation. Consistency matters way more than complexity, and small, consistent actions are always better than an overwhelming amount of initiatives that tend to fizzle out. So train your team, track your progress, and then measure return rates quarterly. Small steps lead to big results. Whether it's the simple "we miss you" email or a targeted campaign for dental compliance or consistent forward booking. Pick a simple goal, and when they're done with intention, you can yield thousands in recurring revenue. So everything we talked about today ties back to that, one simple focus: keeping clients connected to your practice. And I want to emphasize one last thing here. Measuring your results is critical. At IVET 360, we sync up with your practice management system and use data from within your PIM system to understand true return on investment when it comes to things like compliance campaigns. The case study examples I gave earlier, they're not estimated performance metrics. They're hard numbers that come straight from the client's practice management system. If you need help with this, reach out to us. This is what we do. We strategize, we implement, we track, and we iterate so that our practices continue to grow. So what's the payoff here? Well, when loyalty becomes part of your culture, everybody wins. Clients enjoy trusted, consistent care. Pets stay healthier and in their families. And your practice benefits from steadier growth, stronger relationships, and less stress chasing new business, because loyalty isn't a program, it's a culture. So as we wrap this up, I want to encourage you to try, just one or two of these strategies, or one strategy, let's say this month. Enthusiasm and consistency are key to introducing anything new. And like I said, if you need help, we are here for you. You can contact any of your service managers here. And now I'm going to turn this over for questions. So we have some question and answer time here. Let's see. If you have a question, go ahead and enter it in the chat. And let's see, our moderator here is our Director of Marketing Services, Jessica. And I'll let me know if we've got any questions there.
Hi, yes, we do have a couple already here. First one is, so these guys say we're doing all these things. We've got a loyalty program, referral program, free first exam, forward booking, etc., but we're still seeing lapses in client compliance. What should we do at this point?
Sure, good question. One, I would say great job at implementing all of those different features at this point. And I would say your next step for your practice would be to turn inward even more. Visualize the customer journey from that first phone call to checkout and beyond. What could be improved during that process? What barriers to care currently exist? If price is a major complaint that you're getting from your clients, offering more reliable discounts during specific months so that people can better plan and budget for those care elements will be helpful. So, obviously we've got dental health promotions when it comes to February, perhaps a senior pet discount in September. Preventative bundles that maybe you orchestrate during slower times of the year, and use your vendors to help you guide some of these choices. A variety of your pharmaceutical reps, especially, they may already have little different deals that you can turn into a package or a promotion that is really not necessarily costing you anything more, but that you can kind of roll out at specific or strategic times. Now, I wouldn't say you need to go overboard discounting services or products. That can be sort of exhausting for clients anyway. But having some reliable promotions can help clients plan accordingly. If they know that year after year, you've got a dental promotion every February or a senior discount every September, they can start to budget their lifestyle and their pets' wellness care around those kinds of programs, which will help with compliance, right? I would also say look into having different payment options and openly encourage pet insurance these days. It's been a tough time for the industry, and it's a tough time for pet parents. Vet care costs have been rising, as you well know, and the practices who have options when it comes to how am I going to pay this bill, whether it's routine maintenance care or it's a specialty procedure or it's an emergency situation. All of those are going to be better options when it comes to compliance. And again, building trust within your pet parent community. If they know they can come to you and they've got options when it comes to either their pet insurance that you accept, or you've got a relationship with, Care Credit, Scratch Pay, Cherry, those kind of payment plan setups, this can really affect compliance and give people more confidence that they're going to be able to afford their pet's wellness care in a time where maybe finances are a little bit more unstable. And then finally, for that question, I would say zoom out. from your practice and see what might be a barrier to booking. Is there something tricky with your location and traffic congestion, parking? Is your waiting room experience enjoyable? Think about the sounds, the smells, the atmosphere in general. Now, you don't need to be a bougie corporate, white walls, clean space, iron chandelier kind of place to provide good medicine. You know this. Your pet parents know it too. But if your environment is one that is stressful, overwhelming in terms of smell or animal sounds. If you've got your CSRs chit-chatting at the front desk about clients coming and going, you've got dogs barking, you've got cats scratching, and you've got pop music playing over the radio, that is an overwhelming sensory experience that might limit how much a person wants to come into that environment. So zoom out, look at some of those things that maybe have just kind of started to go over your head a little bit these days. And then I would say, look at your reviews. Now, of course, as we all know, there's going to be some reviews in there that might be a little bit nuanced and unfair. But if we start to see trends in certain negative reviews, maybe those guide you toward improvements. So while some things might be immovable, like your location, other elements you might find could be spruced up or improved upon.
Yeah, well said. So it looks like the other question that we've got here is, I'm working on things with my CSRs, but it's been challenging, and I'm curious what other practices are experiencing. What is a concerning trend you're seeing in the industry when it comes to the front desk teams?
That's a great question. The CSRs have a tough job. They wear many hats. They are doing many things at once. That role, oftentimes I'll have flashbacks from being in that kind of role. It is a hard job. Now, that said, I will say that the natural wear and tear of this industry, especially during the COVID years, there's sometimes sort of an unwillingness to help from a lot of the CSR calls that I'm listening to weekly. Not everybody, of course, and I'm only listening to a portion of the calls that are coming into a practice on any given day, week, month. But one of the trends that I have noticed is that sometimes folks who are really good at their jobs on the internal front can become a little bit jaded when it comes to their phone voice or their customer service voice, right? And you can hear that on a phone call. So I would say, the people that you've got manning the front desks, they're the gatekeepers to booking appointments these days. They can make or break whether or not you've got a new client who books an appointment or existing clients who become frustrated with the level of care they're receiving when they call in. So, the people answering your phones, your CSRs, they need to be people and not just pet people. And I know that's easier said than done sometimes in this industry, especially. But your folks have got to pick up that phone happy. As silly as it sounds, they've got to be smiling on the other end of that receiver because you can tell. And there's a certain psychology behind that too. Yeah, that fake it till you make it sort of advice. They need to, endear a caller to your practice by being friendly, enthusiastic, helpful. We all have bad days, of course, but your team definitely needs to have a positive attitude and a return to that customer service focused model. A lot of the calls that I listen to, I hear a lot of transactional phone calls here, right? A caller asks a question, the CSR answers without much elaboration, whether it's about price, availability, general questions. Your CSRs need to be offering more information and more compassion, genuine compassion over the phone. I would say too, one concerning trend that I've seen as of late that I've had a couple of practices of my own ask me about is about callers who don't seem to know that your practice does emergency visits during practice hours. They've told me that their clients will come to them and say, "I didn't know you did emergencies. We would have come here." Okay, well, that tells us a couple different things, right? That tells us that there is something missing in the client communication section, whether that's in-house materials, conversations happening either at the front desk or even within the exam rooms, quarterly newsletters. People should know that if they're experiencing a pet emergency and you're their vet, that they can come to you during practice hours, if that is, a service that you're wanting, to continue, or whether or not that's something that you want to push. So one of the things I would say is when you've got your CSRs up front, it can be really off-putting if somebody calls in for an emergency and your CSR says, well, we're just booked up today. Sorry, you're going to have to go to such and such emergency referral and spend all sorts of money elsewhere for this emergency. Now, that may be true that you're booked up. You can't accommodate that kind of client right now, without shuffling everybody else off the schedule. And that's okay. You don't necessarily have to be able to accommodate the emergency that's happening. But what I do think could be a difference maker here is that if your CSRs express genuine concern and say, oh my gosh, I'm sorry you're experiencing that. We do have a full day of appointments and procedures, but let me put you on a brief hold and I'll see what we can do. That kind of phrasing of I'll see what we can do gives that client the feeling of like, we're in this together. They know my pet, they want to help, they're going to see what they can do. Even if your CSR, practice manager, et cetera, know that it's not going to happen, we don't have the capacity for today. You are still giving your client the familiar, trusted feeling of we're gonna see if we can make this work. And maybe you can. And maybe that is, a huge element for the person on the other end of that line who can just come to you now. And even if, you do have to put them on hold and you come back to the phone and you say, I'm so sorry, I spoke with the team, and as much as we'd like to help Fluffy today, based on our current schedule, I think it would be best if you seek care at, such and such ER. We'll go ahead and send her pet records their way so they know she's coming. Something along those lines, so that it's not just a transactional, we can't, sorry, good luck, here's our referral center. You still want to build that trust during those emergencies. Because I've definitely seen an uptick in calls that are folks who are calling in within an emergency situation and the practice is booked. And that person feels and says so, like, well, I've been a client for 10 years. You can't try to help me. So if you can help, amazing. If you can't, let's at least start to bridge that gap of using language like, let me see what I can do. Let's see how I can help. Let me put you on a brief hold, something along those lines.
Yeah, I think that's great. I would also add to that, one of the ways that you can help support your CSR team is by making sure that they have the resources that they need that Noelle mentioned earlier, to help them with like scripting and verbiage, and when we talk about that, at least with our clients, we're not necessarily saying that they should be reading off of a script, but more so just providing them with verbiage that familiarizes them with the appropriate way to have a certain type of conversation so that they feel equipped for that conversation when the time comes. I even recently was talking with a client about the idea of even doing like practice calls, mock calls, to get them comfortable with whatever the shared narrative is that you want to be using with your particular clientele. And then the last thing I think is also making sure that with all of the many tasks that CSRs have on their plate, that we're helping them to organize and prioritize those tasks appropriately as well, so that they do have the space to handle calls the way that they should be handling them.
Mhm.
But yeah. Well, I think that's all we've got for today.